Hey guys, my December 29th DVD update. I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Some really cool stuff to talk about in this one. Now the first one I got is Dredd, and this is the 2D, 3D version. Now I will say, I watched this with my brother and he loved it as well. If you have a 3D television, definitely watch the 3D version. I mean, it really is some of the coolest 3D. Like, it's basically in the movie. It's a different story of the Dredd's Dredd. It's not really a remake. It's kind of just a different story from the character because it's based on the comic book. And it's basically, in the future, the world has fallen apart and they've built a whole new world on top of it. So basically, it's these giant, apartment complexes that are these, huge tower buildings, and they're like 250 floors and filled with, thousands upon thousands of people in them. And Dredd is sent into one of them. And it's this woman who's taking over the tower, and she basically controls it, takes over floor by floor, and she basically runs this place. And she's there with Dredd's there with a new woman who's kind of training to be part of the kind of cop systems, where it's basically Dredd is like the person who controls, like when people are bad, and instead of like a cop system, he passes judgment on people. So he kills them if they do a crime or he has a sentence of death. He basically just puts them to death. So they're in this building, get locked down when the woman who's in charge of this huge complex finds out that they're there, and it's them trying to, get the woman and kill these group of these terrible people. And there's some amazing sequences in this movie with this kind of drug that the characters use. It's like this drug that slows down things. And the sequences in 3D when it's slowed down, like there's a sequence of someone getting killed and shot. Amazing, some of these sequences. And I feel like this was a really overlooked movie that not a lot of people saw, and I really thought this was a great science fiction futuristic movie. Really was surprised how much I liked this. I really love this one. It's one of those ones like I can watch a lot. Like, was kind of reminded me of the original Total Recall. It really did have a real 80s kind of vibe to it. Everything about the look and the kind of futuristic world that they had kind of reminded me of an 80s kind of science fiction, well, the way they would make the world look then, with these amazing CG kind of 3D effects of like the blood and stuff. I really love this one, but it was him, Dredd, in there trying to track down the woman in charge and, killing her and passing judgment. Really would highly recommend this one. And the next one I got from Lionsgate as well is The Possession, which is a great kind of possessed film, kind of in the line of The Exorcist, kind of that type of movie. This is about a guy who's out with his daughters, or it's his daughter, and he ends up going to a yard sale, and she sees this kind of weird weird kind of box thing, and you see early in the movie that there's a significance to this thing, and it's basically, it opens though with this old woman in the house dying, or you see something happening to her in this box, and the girl ends up buying this thing, and it's basically possessed, and the box, she takes it to to her room, and it starts to kind of control her, and she starts acting very strange, at the dinner table looking really weird, stabs her dad's hand, and doesn't, just sort of looks like something is up. And the parents really don't understand what's going on. Everyone's sort of thinking that she's basically just gone nuts. And it's kind of like the investigating with the father and trying to figure it out, and the mother thinking the father's gone nuts. And there's some really cool sequences in this with, like, when the possession sequences, some real creepy stuff. The Matisyahu's in this as a rabbi, and I love the sequence with him in this near the end of the movie. Really thought this was an extremely creepy movie. Some really creepy sequences in this movie. This is up with like the kind of movies like this lately. This one and Sinister have been my favorites. This is one I would really recommend checking out if you like possession movies. Like I said, too, an extremely creepy one. The next one I got, and this is all about branding, and it's called Branded. It stars that Leelee Sobieski. I never know how to say her name, but it's this guy who is really good at marketing and selling things. He ends up working for the guy's Jeffrey Tambor's character works for his advertising firm, and he's doing really good there. And he ends up liking Leelee Sobieski's character, who is Jeffrey Tambor's I think, niece, and he ends up basically fired for liking her. They end up teaming up together to make this reality show, and I don't want to say exactly what happens in the reality show, but it's like a kind of an extreme makeover show, and it doesn't go well, what ends up happening with this. So what ends up happening to him is he ends up pretty much disappearing, and you're not really ruining anything with this because the movie, in the trailer, you see that he has this gift. And basically what happens is something that he does gives him the gift of seeing that there is a higher power controlling the branding messages of places like McDonald's, and there's some kind of a creaturous things that attach themselves to people, and he has the ability to see this. And this is basically what ends up happening with him and seeing this. Really, really cool movie. It really makes you think about the brands and the controlling messages and things like that. I love this one, and I really like Jeffrey Tambor. Jeffrey Tambor is really good in this. Always been a fan of Leelee Sobieski from, Eyes Wide Shut, The Glass House, a number of movies. This is a really cool, different movie, and it's about like almost like the higher ups of branding and these crazy images of how they do it. Really good one. The next one is Charlie Sheen's new show. After he ended up leaving 2.5 Men, or getting fired from 2.5 Men, he made a new sitcom for FX, and it's Anger Management. Really did enjoy this one. He's basically plays what would you say, like a therapist for helping people through anger management problems, yet he has in the past he had terrible anger management problems himself. His dream was to be a baseball player, got to the major leagues. The very first day, something happened that pissed him off, so he ended up breaking the bat over his leg, and that was the end of that dream. So he ended up getting into therapy and helping people with anger problems themselves. And, he's gotten over that pretty well. Then something ends up kind of triggering it and kind of bringing him back to that place. And he pretty much needs anger management himself. In the movie, his girlfriend is played by Selma Blair. Always been a big fan of Selma Blair. Really loved her recently in Dark Horse. And his ex-wife is Shawnee Smith, who was from the Saw films. And I always think of her, too, from, I think, Who's Harry Crumb, the movie with John Candy. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was actually pretty funny. And with me, when it comes to sitcoms, I'm real particular, and some of them I don't really find very funny. This one, I actually thought most of the jokes were really pretty funny. Really liked this one. Always pretty much liked Charlie Sheen. I always think of him for some weird reason in that movie, The Wrath. The next one from Sony is The Words, and I really enjoyed this one. I know it had a couple mixed opinions. I really did like this a lot, though, and it's about, basically, it's Dennis Quaid giving this lecture talking about his new book. And I think it was a new book talking about the story of how a man ended up getting for a gift from his wife this it's Bradley Cooper and character who's the main character in this, gets this whole thing like a bag for his writing, since he's a writer, and inside of this was a manuscript for this story. And Bradley Cooper's character has been a writer and hasn't been able to get anything published. He's had no luck with anything, and he ends up finding this thing and ends up passing it off as his own. And what ends up happening, and Jeremy Irons' character is the original writer of this, comes back to him in a really cool way and saying, about how he pretty much is explaining how he knows, and he tells the story of his life, which is so sad, about, him, how he was a writer and what happened with his family, and really, really sad sequence. That's my favorite sequence in the movie, the flashbacks that Jeremy Irons' character is saying. And like I said, it's Dennis Quaid's character telling this story to to this group of these students. Really enjoyed this one a lot. Like I said, I really loved the flashback sequence, and there was a lot of that stuff. That was like my favorite part in that. And the next one from Warner Brothers is The Trouble with the Curve, the Clint Eastwood movie. This is the first movie he's acted in a while. He still does direct, but I think I remember hearing that after Gran Torino, he said that he was done acting, but this is the first movie he came back to do. I thought this one was pretty good. It was basically him as he's a scout, he's been a scout for years, looking for talent for, the major league baseball teams, and the people that are in charge of him, he doesn't know this is all going on, but they're pretty much tired of him. He does things the old-fashioned way, doesn't use computers, still does all things by hand, and he's really not bringing in the talent. And John Goodman is like his boss, and there's these two people under him. Matthew Lillard is in it, and he basically wants Clint Eastwood out. Like, he's like, we're going to get rid of him. We can't have him here. Matthew Lillard and John Goodman's like, no, keep him around. I really like him. And, Clint Eastwood's character's vision's starting to go. He's having all these problems. He plays, the kind of curmudgeon-y, upset, pissed-off old guy that he plays a lot. But he plays it so well. But it's him, doing this with his eyesight problems going on. John Goodman's character ends up finding out that his eyesight's going because his doctor ends up telling him. So his daughter, played by Amy Adams, ends up going out on the road with him, to try and kind of help him, look for talent, but they kind of have a really bad relationship, don't really get along too well. Justin Timberlake is in the movie as a old baseball player that had an accident and can't play any longer, so now he's doing the same thing that Clint Eastwood's character's doing, starts to like Amy Adams' character, but it's all that kind of stuff with them, with their relationships, and all that kind of things. I thought this was pretty good. Not the all-time greatest movie, but I really do like Clint Eastwood. I always like him when he's playing those real pissed-off characters. And it is, about, like I said, relationships and families getting back together and having all kinds of problems and things like that. John Goodman in this, too. I don't think I've ever seen him have a mustache. I might be wrong, but he had a mustache in this, and I was like, mustache on John Goodman. And I don't think I've ever seen him have a mustache. Now this one is from Breaking Glass Pictures, and this is so hard to explain. I don't think I've ever had a movie that was this confusing with the story. I did not know who anybody was, and I couldn't figure out who anybody was. And it's 6 Degrees of Hell. Corey Feldman is listed in the main characters. The whole movie, I was wishing Corey Feldman would have been in this more. It's basically about... to try and even explain it, but it's this kind of haunted house attraction. It starts with these kids in the haunted house. It's a popular haunted house. I think it's in Pittsburgh. I love haunted house movies and these kind of things. And Corey Feldman's character is kind of talking to a cop about what had happened in this haunted house. And these kids are there, and then they go home. The one girl ends up getting kind of taken in by a demon and killed or missing. And then, there's these sequences when they get to the haunted house, and there's, kind of zombies in it, and I don't know. This was a jumbled mess. And, I usually don't like to talk, negative about stuff. That's not how I am. But this was a serious mess. And, like I said, I kept on wishing Corey Feldman was in this more. I don't know. Like I said, I really don't I like to try and find positives about things. I can't find too many about that one. I just couldn't. The next one is from E1, and it's War of the Dead. This is a cool, movie about an American and, I think it was Finland soldiers, and they're going to destroy this bunker, and they go there and kill the soldiers, and the soldiers end up coming back to life, and they're these Nazis, and they're it's them kind of trying to hide out from the Nazi soldiers that have become zombies. So it's that kind of cool, hiding out, hiding in places and trying to, survive. And I always love these kind of zombie movies. This is a real fun one. The next one, and this one I just bought a minute ago, and it's a Walmart exclusive. I think it may be coming out later in the year, other places, and it's from Mill Creek, and I just bought this at Walmart. And it's the double pack with When a Stranger Calls, the original Carol Kane one, and Happy Birthday to Me. And it has the original music. I know this is the cover for the one that did not have the original music, but it does have the original music. Really cool movies. Happy Birthday to Me, though, was my favorite one. I like the music, though. If it was the Change one, I would not have liked it because I love the music in this. The guy who did the music also did the music for Motel Hell. The next one I got, ordered this one online. This is a harder one to find in stores, and it's Death Ship. I've always loved this one. When I saw this was coming out to Blu-ray, I couldn't believe it because I don't think this has ever even hit. Never was on DVD before, never was on anything, and it's basically about this ship that's kind of haunted, kind of like Ghost Ship, and it ends up colliding into a cruise ship, and everybody dies in the cruise ship except like a group of survivors. They end up coming to the death ship and getting on, and as soon as they get there, it's weird, and doors are opening and closing. The one person's getting thrown into the water and drowned, and all the kind of things that are happening on this. And it stars George Kennedy, who ends up basically getting possessed by the spirits on this thing. Really creepy one. There's a real creepy sequence with these candies this woman eats, and her face is sort of like, it gets all squiggled up. It always creeps me out. And there's also the famous blood shower scene in this. The next ones are from Comedy Central, and it's the Tosh.0s, and it's Deep V's, and this one is cardigans and casual jackets. This one is a Walmart exclusive one. You can only get it at Walmart. This one's everywhere. I really like the Tosh.0s. The things I really like about them are the web redemptions. The Walmart one had, I think it was the Walmart one that had the kid that, when he went to the dentist and was all acting like, is this what life's like? That kid. The one had the World of Warcraft kid that goes crazy. The mom cancels the subscription, and they prove that it was fake. It's basically, though, Tosh.0 watching, crazy web videos and giving commentary over them, and then the web redemptions, which are some of my favorite stuff. Also from Comedy Central is Gabriel Iglesias' Stand-Up Revolution, which is him, doing some stand-up and then presenting other comics and stuff. If you like stand-up comedy and things like that, this is a fun one. Now this one, I have to admit, I have never cried so much in a movie, I don't think in my entire life. I mean, maybe Requiem for a Dream and the Robin Williams one, Bicentennial Man, but I don't know if I ever did this much. And it's an amazing movie. Really loved it, and Dakota Fanning did a really good job, and it's called Now Is Good, and she plays a girl that has the end stages of leukemia, and she's dying, and she's decided to cancel treatment, and she wants to just live life, and has like a list of things she wants to do before she dies, and when this is all going on, she ends up meeting this guy that she really likes, and it's, with all these problems that are going on, and she's really sick, and him having to deal with this, but it's all about, the family and the end, and I don't know, and Dakota Fanning, has a British accent in the movie, and I thought she did a really good job, because you hear some people doing British accents and people doing American accents, they sort of seem really fake. I mean, it may not sound like to some people like perfect, but I thought she did a really good job. And besides that, it was just an amazingly acted movie, and you get so into this, and you really feel like this is going on. And, like I said, this is not something that everybody could watch, because, me, I was like, ugh. By the end, I mean, it was like someone in my family died. I mean, I was so crying, because it's that powerful, and that it works that well. At least to me, it works so well. Highly recommend this for a good drama and a good cry. The next one now is a more fun movie, though, because that was a full drama, and I love the In-Betweeners show. The original version, not the MTV new one that got canceled. But this is the In-Betweeners, the movie from Lionsgate, put this out. And this is the same characters from the In-Betweeners show. And this is them going, they just graduated from high school, and they're going on a, kind of a spring break kind of thing, after graduation. They end up going to, I think it was like Brazil, and of course, like the hotel they get is a dump, and the one guy just broke up with his girlfriend, and of course they end up at the same place where the girlfriend is, so he's there, seeing the girlfriend and trying to impress her and trying to get back with her. There's also all the other guys are finding girls there that they like, and it's all kind of things that's kind of happening with them, and all the kind of situations they become in, like this crappy hotel, getting drunk, and getting into fights with each other. I really love the In-Betweeners, and if you love that, I think it's definitely a must-see. And I don't think you have to know the show to get this. I think it can stand up on its own. But I thought this was a really funny one. The next one from Warner Archive, it's a Burn on Demand, and it's the Police Academy, the animated series. This is growing up as a kid, I used to watch this all the time. I can't remember exactly what the date was that this came on, but I collected the toys for this show. I had all the toys. I had the Police Academy house, every one of the figures. Only recently I rebought the house, because when I was like 6 or something, I had to get rid of it. And for years I wanted it again, and it was impossible to find. Like I think about a year ago I ended up getting it again, because I don't know. I always loved this, and it's just the kind of, they used to do this a lot back in the 80s. They would take kind of adult movies, and kind of make a kids series out of it. And this is just basically the kids series of the Police Academy movies, and them, all the kind of things that are going on. This is a really fun show. And I don't think, everybody, if you grew up watching this and you know this, it's a must pick up. And the next one from E1 is Joan Rivers' Don't Start With Me, which is her new stand-up comedy special. I've been a huge fan of Joan Rivers. I think she's one of the best female comics, and she's pretty much one of the first. And, so many people, have looked up to her. And I love, because she gets so raunchy with some of the stuff she does. And this shows an interesting aspect, too, in the opening, which I didn't know. And it's not just because she said this because she's old. She has the cue cards on the floor to remind her of jokes. I thought that was an interesting thing, because I always wondered, too, when you're doing stand-up, how you can make sure to remember all the jokes and make sure you say this stuff. I just really love her stuff, and she's not afraid to say anything. She goes totally, out there with these jokes, and, doesn't care what you think. And I love that. I really have been, like I said, a fan of her for years. Really like the documentary on her as well. This is, if you like, love Joan Rivers, this is one to definitely check out. The next one, I was interested in seeing this, and I like this a lot. I like the Blue Lagoon 2 best, with Mila Jovovich best. I found out later this was a Lifetime movie, but for a Lifetime movie it was actually okay, and the main guy, who was from the first Blue Lagoon movie, played a teacher in this. But this is about kids that were going on like a trip for the summer, a school trip, and they end up going out on a boat, like a kind of like a yacht. The one girl ends up falling in, and the other guy ends up going after her to help her. And, because the police basically came to this yacht party thing, and the guy is like, I don't want to have the police around, I'm afraid of this, and like, my dad to find out. So they end up staying in this boat to hide out, end up, waking up in the middle of the ocean, end up getting to the island. It's the same kind of thing, the other ones with them trapped on the island and trying to make a life with each other and falling in love. And I don't know, I always love these kind of island movies, and I thought this was actually pretty well done. Not a whole ton thing to say, because it's pretty much a remake of it, but it's also the families trying to find them and things like that. This one I picked up. I think it wasn't that expensive. Of course, I bought it used, and then like a day later, it was like $7 less used. And it's Ghost Chase. And I really wanted to buy another movie with Jason Lively. Jason Lively, because I saw him, I was so happy to see him in that commercial for the Christmas Vacation one for Old Navy. Well, I was always a huge fan of him in Night of the Creeps and the European Vacation. I hope he comes back to acting. Like, after he did that, I hope like he gets interested in like doing some more stuff, because I would love to see him in some horror movies and stuff. He's cool. And this is about this kind of not the like all-time greatest movie, but this is a fun movie. This kid ends up, it's like this sort of creature thing that he ends up getting from his grandfather, and the creature's telling him about this money, and they're trying to get it, but it deals all with like filmmaking, and these two are making their this film, and as being an actor and loving these kind of movies and stuff, I just really enjoyed this one. The last one is a Rodney Dangerfield film that I had never saw, that has some really good cameos. Like, everybody under the sun is in this one. Gilbert Gottfried, and like Phil Lamar and Tony Cox, and everybody's in this thing. But it's Rodney Dangerfield is like the warden of this jail, and Randy Quaid is kind of the guy who funds the thing, won't give them enough money to get improvements, but Randy Quaid's character has all this money because he owns these stores kind of like Walmart's, and he's got a ton of them, kind of like a dozen or two, and he's got the money to help, but he doesn't want to, and he wants to get rid of Rodney Dangerfield's character and fire him off at the end of the year. So Rodney Dangerfield's character ends up coming up with the idea of letting the inmates, certain ones of them, leave at night to rob the store and steal things to, help improve the jail, like gym equipment and things like that. You know, if this is a cheesy, over-the-top, kind of bad acting in some part movie, I loved it. I mean, I really like this. I don't know how I didn't see this one till now. If you like Rodney Dangerfield, you like, Randy Quaid, who hopefully some point can get his problems figured out, because I miss Randy Quaid in movies. I really do. But this is a really fun one. Anyway, though, thanks a lot for watching, for subscribing, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.